When I was a little girl, my dreams were never too big. I didn't want a mansion, diamonds, or fancy clothes. I just wanted peace. I grew up in a simple neighborhood in England, where people judged others not by their kindness, but by their achievements. And I wasn't an achiever. I wasn't the smartest in school, nor the most talented, but I had one thing that others didn't. I had patience. When my parents arranged my marriage to a man from a middle-class family, I didn't complain. I trusted their decision. My husband Daniel was a hard-working man, quiet, honest, and decent. For the first few months, everything seemed peaceful. I cooked, cleaned, and took care of the home. But soon, I realized peace doesn't last long. When jealousy and comparison live under the same roof, Daniel's sister, Clara, was different. She had studied abroad, spoke fluent French, and worked in a big company in the city. She used to look at me with eyes full of pity, as if I was too simple, too ordinary to be part of her family. Every time she visited, she would make small remarks that cut deep like knives hidden behind smiles. "Emma, your tea is too light. Didn't your mother teach you how to brew properly? Or you still wear these plain clothes? You should try to look like a proper woman of the family." At first, I ignored her. I believed that silence was my strength. But silence, I learned, often gives people permission to hurt you again and again. One evening, Clara humiliated me in front of the entire family during dinner. I had mistakenly burned a part of the bread. She laughed loudly and said, "Daniel, you could have married anyone. And you chose her? She can't even cook." I felt the tears welling up, but I refused to let them fall. My husband stayed quiet, his head lowered. That silence broke something inside me. I wasn't angry at Clara anymore. I was angry at myself for letting her steal my peace. That night, I promised myself something. I might not be the smartest or the most skilled woman, but I will not live my life being looked down upon. From that day, everything began to change. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise. The cold English air felt sharper than usual, but for the first time, I didn't mind it. I sat by the window with a notebook and wrote a promise to myself. I will become someone who doesn't need validation. I will learn, grow, and prove my worth. Not to others, but to myself. That small sentence became my fire. For days, I watched how my sister-in-law Clara handled things. How she spoke, dressed, cooked, and even how she managed her time. Not out of jealousy, but out of curiosity. If she could do it, why couldn't I? I might not have had her education, but I had determination. When everyone slept at night, I started reading. Old cookbooks, home management tips, English grammar, even simple business ideas. Anything I could get my hands on. I borrowed books from the library and watched tutorials on an old phone. Every mistake became a lesson, every insult a motivation. One day, Daniel noticed me reading late at night. "Emma," he said softly, "you don't have to change for anyone." I smiled faintly and replied, "I'm not changing for anyone. I'm changing because I deserve better than what I am now." Over time, my cooking improved. Not just a little, but a lot. I learned new recipes, added creativity to traditional dishes, and started baking small treats for the neighbors. People began to compliment my work, and for the first time, I felt proud. But Clara, she couldn't stand it. She visited one afternoon and saw the table filled with pastries I had baked for a local charity event. "Oh, so now you're a baker," she said mockingly. "How cute. Maybe one day you'll open your little tea shop in the corner of the street." I looked at her calmly and replied, "Maybe I will. At least I'll own something that's mine." That was the first time I had spoken back. The room fell silent. She looked surprised. Not because of what I said, but because she realized she couldn't control me anymore. A few months later, an opportunity knocked. A local bakery owner, Mrs. Rose, had tasted my cupcakes at a community gathering and asked if I'd like to work with her part-time. My heart raced. It wasn't a glamorous job, but it was mine. The first day at that bakery changed my life. The smell of warm bread, the sound of laughter, and the satisfaction of honest work made me feel alive again. Every morning, I tied my apron and reminded myself, I might be ordinary, but ordinary people build extraordinary lives. The bakery became my second home. Every morning, before the sun peeked over the rooftops, I arrived to knead dough and prepare fresh loaves. The scent of vanilla, butter, and baked bread filled the air. It felt like hope itself. Mrs. Rose, the owner, treated me like family. You have a good heart. Emma, she said one morning as she dusted flour off her apron. People like that always rise, no matter how deep they've been buried. Her words gave me strength. Within months, I wasn't just helping. I was managing deliveries, designing pastry boxes, and even creating my own recipes. My cinnamon dream cupcakes became a local favorite. People began to ask for me by name. Daniel noticed the change too. He smiled more often, his shoulders relaxed, and his voice carried pride again. One evening, he said, Emma, I didn't realize how much strength you had. I should have supported you sooner. I just smiled and said, sometimes we have to lose everything to see what we truly have. But not everyone was happy for me. Clara came to visit again, pretending to be kind. She praised my work, told me she wanted to invest in my baking. At first, I thought maybe she had changed, but deep down, I felt an unease. A chill that reminded me of the days she used to humiliate me. One afternoon, while I was at the bakery, she visited Daniel at home. She told him lies, that I was secretly earning money and hiding it from the family, that I had changed and didn't care about anyone anymore. When I came home that night, Daniel looked upset. Emma, are you hiding things from me? My heart sank. What are you talking about? He sighed. Clara said you've been earning behind my back, that you're saving to move away. I laughed in disbelief, tears forming in my eyes. Daniel, I'm doing this for us, so that we never have to depend on anyone again. But the seed of doubt had already been planted. For weeks there was tension in the house. I could feel it in the air, like a storm waiting to break. Clara kept coming, smiling in front of me, but whispering behind my back. Her words twisted everything I did, until one day I found out her real plan. Mrs. Rose called me in tears. Emma, someone called the health department and filed a false complaint about our bakery. They said our food wasn't clean. My heart froze. I knew immediately who it was. Clara had gone too far. The bakery was shut down for 2 weeks pending investigation. The customers drifted away, and my world crashed once again. That night, I cried alone in the kitchen. I wasn't angry, I was exhausted. But as I looked at my hands, the same hands that had worked, kneaded, and created so much, I realized something powerful. They could destroy me, but they couldn't stop me. From that day on, I decided I wouldn't just work in a bakery. I would own one. I started selling my pastries from home again, reaching out to my old customers through word of mouth and small notes slipped under doors. The first few days were quiet, but then someone placed a large order. Then another. Slowly, business picked up again. People started coming to my door, smiling, saying, Emma, your cupcakes are even better than before. Within 6 months, I had saved enough to rent a small shop space, and I named it The Flower Within, because, just like flour, we all rise when we are under pressure. When Clara heard about my bakery, she laughed. You own a business, don't be foolish. But when she saw my shop opening day, filled with people, music, and joy, she couldn't speak. She turned red, said something under her breath, and left without a word. That day, I realized revenge doesn't always come in anger or hate. Sometimes, the sweetest revenge is success. Calm, graceful, and undeniable. Still, I didn't know then. My success was about to bring another storm in my life. Clara wasn't done yet. The grand opening of the Flower Within was the happiest day of my life. The little shop smelled like warm bread and vanilla. The walls painted soft cream and gold. Every table had fresh flowers, and laughter filled the air. Daniel stood beside me, his eyes glistening with pride. "You did this, Emma," he whispered. I smiled. We did this. But deep down, I knew this moment was mine. The result of every tear, insult, and sleepless night, the return of Clara. Few weeks after the opening, Clara walked into my bakery. She was wearing a sharp dress, expensive jewelry, and that same smirk she always wore when she thought she was better than everyone else. "Emma," she said, scanning the shop. "I must admit, I didn't think you'd actually pull this off." I wiped my hands on my apron, staying calm. People change when life teaches them how. Clara smiled thinly. "You've always been too emotional. Anyway, I have a business proposal. I want to be your partner. I can bring in more customers, invest some money, help expand." For a moment, I almost laughed. The same woman who once told me I wasn't good enough to bake bread wanted to partner with me now. "Clara," I said gently, "this place isn't for sale, and neither am I." Her smile faded. "You'll regret this," she hissed before walking out, heels clicking sharply against the floor. But I didn't regret it, not for a second. The turning point months passed. The Flower Within became one of the most loved bakeries in the town. We were featured in the local newspaper, and people from nearby cities began visiting. I even started teaching baking classes to young girls. Girls like I once was, full of fear but hungry for hope. Daniel helped me manage the finances, and our marriage slowly healed. His words were no longer sharp. His eyes held warmth again. One evening after closing the shop, he said, "I'm proud of you, Emma. You've built something stronger than anyone could destroy." I smiled. "It's not just a bakery, Daniel. It's proof that kindness can be power." But fate wasn't done testing me. One night I got a call from a friend. Clara's business, a small boutique she had opened, had gone bankrupt. Her husband had left her, and she was living alone. For a moment, my heart softened. Despite everything she'd done, I couldn't find joy in her pain. The next morning, as I was setting up the counter, the doorbell chimed. I looked up, and there she was again. But this time, she wasn't wearing her usual confidence. Her eyes were tired, her clothes wrinkled, and her voice trembled when she said, "Emma, I need help, forgiveness and power." I stood frozen for a moment, then quietly gestured for her to sit. She looked around the bakery, tears filling her eyes. "I ruined everything," she whispered. "I was jealous of you. Jealous because you stayed kind when I couldn't. My bitterness destroyed me." I took a deep breath. "Clara, what you did hurt me deeply. You tried to break me when I was already broken. But I learned something through all of it. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's freedom." She looked at me, surprised. "I'll help you," I said softly. "Not because you deserve it, but because I want peace." For the first time, Clara truly cried, not out of anger, but regret. From that day, I offered her a small job at the bakery. Nothing grand, just a chance to start again. The first few days were awkward, but slowly she began to change. She smiled at customers, learned to bake, and even apologized to Daniel. People around us were shocked. "Emma, after everything she did, why would you help her?" they asked. I just smiled, because hate only makes the world colder. Someone has to break the cycle. A new dawn years passed, and the Flower Within expanded into 3 branches. My name became known not just for baking, but for resilience. I gave talks at local schools, teaching girls that strength doesn't come from perfection. It comes from persistence. One day, as I stood by the window of my bakery, watching people line up for my pastries, Clara walked beside me and said quietly, "You changed me. Emma, You gave me a second life. I turned to her and said, "We both learned the same lesson. Kindness is the strongest revenge." As the sun set that evening, painting the sky golden rose, I looked at the sign above the bakery door. The flower within. It wasn't just the name of a shop. It was my story. One of struggle, pain, forgiveness, and triumph. And as I looked at my family laughing together inside, I realized something simple but true. I had won, not by fighting, but by rising.